Hello folks, I'm Sherry Schreiner, and I want to do this video on common errors in Bible prophecy today. People want to know who I am. I'm an ambassador, prophet, and messenger of the Most High God. I've just moved from Monday nights to Sherry Schreiner, which I've done for 13 years, Monday nights with Sherry Schreiner, to Blacklisted News and Bible Prophecy Watch, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at noon Eastern Time and 9 a.m. Pacific, and you can hear me at blogtalkradio.com/Sherry Talk Radio. And I wrote this article a couple years ago, Bible Prophecy for the Last Days, setting it straight against the common errors of the churches. Now, most of you really don't know a lot about me, but I grew up a prophecy guru from the time I was 8 or 9 years old. It was just my thing. It was my calling. I love Bible prophecy. And like many of you, I got pulled into the whole thing with Hal Lindsey and Jack Van Impe and all these self-appointed and self-inscribed gurus of Bible prophecy until I got older and started praying to the Lord for the truth in all things. And he pulled me away from all of that because they were spreading errors, they were teaching errors. And so that's what I want to talk about today. You know, when I used to be a big Jack Van Impe and Rex Zella fan years ago, you know, when I started praying for the truth in all things, you know, I'd be sitting there watching Jack Van Impe late at night, and I didn't even know a thing about reptilian shapeshifters back in the 90s. I didn't know a thing about it, but I would see Rex Zella shapeshift in almost every one of the shows. And I didn't know what was going on, and it wasn't until I started learning about shapeshifters and soul scalping that I finally figured it out, and the Lord was giving me truths about a lot of things that are going on. But one of the biggest things today, the misconceptions in the churches, is the Daniel timeline. Because the whole Daniel timeline of the 7-year tribulation period was a Masonic invention with a lot of misinterpretations, so you need to just throw that out. Hal Lindsey, Jack Van Impe, all of these prophecy gurus who push this Daniel timeline 7-year thing, throw it out, because they're all Masons. In fact, Hal Lindsey, 33rd degree, probably higher. The only level they'll tell you they're at is 33rd, because they want people to think 33rd is the highest degree in Masonry when it isn't. And the same thing with Jack Van Impe. And another thing about any preacher that's on TBN, the Beast Network, you have to sign the dotted line to get a show on the Beast Network. You have to sell your soul to the devil. And for a lot of these people, religion is a business, and it's their ministry to Lucifer. And so if you still see them on TBN, you know, when I heard years ago about Jack Van Impe marrying a stripper he met at a stripper bar, that was the last nail in the coffin for me about any of these preachers. But they give you a lot of misconceptions, and they lead you down the wrong path so that you don't know where you're at in Bible prophecy. So it's going to come out of nowhere, and people don't expect it, and they don't recognize what's going on. You know, they preach a lot about the 7-year Daniel timeline. Like I said, throw it out. They teach about the third temple in Israel. Well, we are the temple, folks. The Abomination of Desolation is putting Satan's mark and his chip in God's temple, which is us. So throw out a third temple in Israel. It's not that important. Not even in their plans. You can even see it in their Masonic movies like Left Behind series. They don't even have the temple rebuilt in that series. It's not that big of a deal in the scheme of things. But it leaves people thinking that there has to be some kind of peace treaty in the Middle East, and the third temple will be rebuilt before the tribulation period will begin. It leads them looking for things that are never going to happen. Another thing that isn't going to happen is war with Russia. It's not even on this side of the millennium, folks, and I'm going to show you in Scripture exactly when this war with Gog and Magog is. It is not this side of the millennium. It's not the first half of the tribulation. It's not the second half of the tribulation. And so I'm going to get into common errors of the churches today and these self-ascribed Bible prophecy gurus that lead everybody astray. And I encourage you to just keep praying for the truth in all things from the Father. And the whole reason a lot of this is going on is exactly this. Many are going to be caught unaware of what's going on because things aren't going to happen like they think they're going to. People won't recognize during the Tribulation Period because there's no war with Russia, there's no seven-year treaty, no temple in Israel. Alright, so let's start with this one first. We are not going to war with Russia. One of the biggest misconceptions is the misinterpretation of Ezekiel 38 and 39 that the USA is going to war with Russia, who is the king of the north and the northern army spoken of in Scripture. Russia is not the king of the north, according to Joel 2, and neither does that Ezekiel 38 war even happen this side of the millennial reign. First, you must understand the 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ on earth, and you can read about it in Revelation chapter 20, verse 4. I'm going to jump down to verse 7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in 4 quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is the land of the sea. This is the same war and event spoken of in Daniel 11. There's a lot you can learn about the millennial reign reading these passages. Nations keep their identity. The people are not robots. They have the free will to rebel against the rulership of David in Jerusalem, and do so as revealed by this attempted war against Jerusalem. However, rebellion of any type will be dealt with by Yahweh himself. The judgment of the nations, Matthew 25, determines which nations get to go into the millennial reign, 1,000-year rule on earth. Read about that in Matthew 25. The Gog and Magog war, Revelation chapter 20, verses 7 to 10, and Ezekiel 38 and 39, and Daniel 11, are all lined together and occur at the end of the 1,000 millennial reign on earth. Revelation 27. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. He was chained and cast into the abyss for 1,000 years, during what we call the millennial reign of Christ, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the 4 quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is at the sand of the sea. I spelled Gog wrong. Should be G-O-G. And they went up to the breadth of the earth, and they compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and the fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Same war, folks. That's mentioned in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And it goes on and on. It should be G. I don't know why this all changed. But that should be G. G-O-G. It tells you who's with them. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them. All of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and his bands. When Satan is released from his prison at the end of the 1,000-year millennial reign, he gathers up Gog and Magog for a war against Jerusalem. That is at the end of the millennial reign. One of the biggest things about people's interpretations of Daniel, they think all of that refers this side of the tribulation period, and it doesn't. Daniel is an overview of events even leading after the millennial reign of Christ on earth. So you can't squeeze all of that on this side of the second coming of Christ. Many refer to Russia as the king of the north and the northern army that comes down upon Israel, but are they? No. You can find out in Joel 2:20 who this is. But I will remove from off you from the northern army, and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, with his face toward the east sea, and his hinder part toward the utmost sea. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savour shall come up, because he hath done great terrible things. The northern army is the invasion of the locusts, Revelation 9, 1-11. It parallels in Scripture the exact same army that is released from the abyss with a king over them called Abaddon and Apollyon, Revelation chapter 9. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts, which is another term for the demonic or aliens, upon the earth, and unto them was given as the powers of the scorpions have power. And it goes on and on. The description, Joel. And I have articles on this at my website. You can see it right. You can go read it full thing. SherryShriner.com/Sherry/Joel, where I talk about this army of Joel chapter 2. It is a demonic alien army from the north. And when you look at Strong's for the term north, it is talking about extreme space, folks. It is talking about space. It's not talking about over the North Pole, which is Russia. Okay, so on to the most common misconception number 2. There is no prophesied treaty between the Arabs and the Jews. This is another Masonic invention to keep people looking for something that's not going to happen. The covenant of Daniel 9:27 has nothing to do with regards to a peace treaty between the Arabs and the Jews. The covenant was the new covenant Yahweh made with man. Plain and simple. It has nothing to do with the Antichrist making a covenant with apostate Jews in Israel today. Satan doesn't make or confirm covenants with mankind. The Most High does. Alright, so I'll read some of this. Excerpts from my article, The Abomination of Desolation. In Daniel, it gets interesting. In chapter 11, it mentions several times the last day's beast, also known as the Antichrist, as having an intense hatred and anger against the Holy Covenant. This covenant is an agreement, alliance, treaty between God and man. It's these people who are part of this covenant that he hates, that he deceives with bribes. Who are these people? The people of the covenant. They are Yahweh's people, believers in Yahushua and Yahweh the Most High God. There are several covenants throughout the Bible. So how do we know which one this is? Throughout chapter 11, it speaks of his hatred of the Holy Covenant. This isn't some political treaty between Israel and Jews as portrayed by the churches that are dominated by high-ranking Masons. The Bible doesn't say anything about it being a political treaty or legislation that is referred to. In fact, it makes it clear that it was a religious covenant by describing it as sacred and holy. Satan hates the Holy Covenant, and in particular, the people of the covenant. The term holy, according to Strong's, means sacred. Covenant means divine ordinance with signs or pledges. It is God's covenant with man that this beast hates, and especially the people who are under it. So what does he do? He sets out to destroy the people of the covenant with flatteries and deceptions. And if that doesn't work, death and imprisonment, as shown below. You can read this in Daniel chapter 11, verses 31, 32, and 35. It's all in my article. Describes very clearly this isn't about a political treaty between the Arabs and Jews. It never mentions them. It specifically mentions the people of the covenant who are targeted to be corrupted by deceptions and flatteries. But the people who do know their God, the ones who walk the talk, do exploits, and the big mouths who teach and instruct others, are killed, imprisoned, and robbed of their possessions. Notice he says in Daniel 11, they give, put, set the abomination. This isn't referring to a building or temple made with hands, but something such as a tattoo or chip implant. I often see the term syringe in the Bible codes. Perhaps they administer it via vaccine or some kind of shot. And so, basically what this is saying is, in Daniel chapter 11, there is no treaty between Arabs and Jews. They're not even mentioned in Daniel chapter 11. Daniel chapter 11 is talking about a people who have a covenant with their God. And this covenant and these people are the ones the beast hates. Now what do we see today? He's going to arrive to earth. They're going to set up this false kingdom on earth. They're going to entice you with flatteries and bribes. This whole Nasera economic program they're introducing. Money, money, money. We're going to make everybody rich. We're going to put everybody's dollar on the same level. And then they're going to start pushing the chip implant. And people are going to be caught unaware because they're not expecting to be this far in Bible prophecy when it hits. I've always said that the chipping will start before people even realize they're in the tribulation period already. How long is the tribulation period? Is the tribulation 7 years or 3.5 years? People have been going with the 7-year thing for a long time. I did too. But when I asked the Father, because there's a lot of delays, after the 6th seal, there's a space of time, there's a delay. After the 7th trumpet, you also have what people would call the Mid-Trib Period, where the chipping is enforced. When I asked the Father directly how long the tribulation was, he told me about 4.5 years. It's not going to start off with a bang, a treaty, a rapture. It's not going to start off with any kind of a bang. Most people won't even know you're in the tribulation period until the beast chipping starts. So I have some stuff here about how long the tribulation period. You go to Daniel, talks about 3.5 years. It says Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentile armies for 42 months, 3.5 years. The 2 witnesses prophesy for 1,260 days, which is 3.5 years. Basically, you don't add 42 months and then 1,260 days. Come up with a 7-year timeline. Kick it off with a treaty. Wait for a temple in Jerusalem. The Masons have put all that together, folks. None of that's going to happen. None of that's going to happen. Alright, talk about the 4 horsemen apocalypse. I'm not going to get into that right now because I want to keep this video kind of short. When does the tribulation period start? And like I said, most people won't even know they're in it until the abomination of desolation begins. Revelation 13, 16, 18. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save he had that mark in the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, mark in Hebrew is chip. Look at the Strong's word, the Hebrew word for mark being used here. In the Hebrew, it's chip. And it also says a mark in their right hand. It was translated right hand. In the Hebrew, it's any hand. It can be your hand. It can be your arm. It can be any part of your arm in either one, left or right. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. For this number of a man, his number is 666. 666. Most are erroneously waiting for a rebuilt temple in Jerusalem for this to occur. We are already under the new covenant Yahweh made with man. We are his temple. And the abomination of desolation would be Satan putting his name, number, image in Yahweh's temple. And that's us. When he starts enforcing beast worship and his chip in people, that is the abomination of desolation. It talks about it in Matthew 24. It says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, the enforcement of chip implanting, then let him which be in Judea flee into the mountains. That's what it's talking about, folks. The abomination of desolation stands in the holy place. Now notice the admonishment in verse 24:15. 24:15. Whoso readeth, let him understand. In other words, if the holy place was the Jewish temple, then why would there be an admonishment here? Everyone would know that's what the passage is referring to. But the real meaning is hidden. That's why it admonishes the reader to understand what is meant by holy place. because it is not the Jewish temple. The rest of the passage is urging people to run to safety quickly, because a time of great tribulation and affliction is about to begin. Something so bad the world has never experienced before, and after this time would never experience it again. And you can look at Revelation chapter 12. Lucifer is kicked out of heaven, which aligns with the fifth trumpet of Revelation 9 and the opening of the bottomless pit. Go into all that in more detail in my article. You can go read about it. Let's get on to the next one. The Chinese are not marching up the Euphrates River with a 200 million man army. I don't know how many times I've heard Bible prophecy gurus talk about Revelation chapter 9 and how this army, this 200 million demonic army is the Chinese. It is not. This is a demonic army that is like, they're like dragons. And they spew fire and brimstone and smoke at people and torture and kill them. This is not Chinese and military tanks. These are literal beings that can fly. And it has a grotesque description of them. And if you've ever seen demonic and alien creatures, they're pretty gross. And they act like dragons. And they kill up to a third of mankind. So, this is not the Chinese, folks. Is there a rapture of the bride? Well, there is 3 groups leaving. The last group, called the church, referred to as the Church of Philadelphia, will be leaving shortly before the mark of the chip is enforced, the mark of the beast, if you qualify. And that's the big thing, if you qualify. Now, if you don't make it in one of the basic 2 groups that are leaving, the first one is the elect. So most of you aren't even going to qualify. There's only 144,000 elect on earth, and that could be a running total over time and not itself at all at once. The second group leaving, and that is the bride, and the third group leaving is those that qualify is the Church of Philadelphia. Most Christians are not going to qualify to be pulled off the earth. Because in Revelation chapters 3, it says those found without guile, without blame. And so many of you are so full of witchcrafts. That's guile, it's witchcraft. Your apostate doctrines, your witchcraft doctrines, you're speaking in your gibberish tongues, you're pleading of the blood, which is just blasphemy to the Father, he hates it. And all your doctrines of man, and you're celebrating of pagan gods in the churches, your Ishtar fertility god worship at Easter time, your pagan Nimrod trees at Christmas time, and none of you are celebrating Passover, what you're supposed to be celebrating, and the feasts that he gave to Israel to celebrate. So many of you say, I'm not Jewish. Well, if you're saying you're not Jewish, you have a real problem. Because we are to become Jewish. And it's a metaphor. We are to adopt his ways and his commands. Not tell him, oh, we're not going to celebrate Passover. We're going to paint fertility eggs and honor Ishtar, the goddess of fertility. Some of you are so far off base with truth, you will be left behind. Then you'll have a lot of time for introspection on why you were rejected by the Most High, and why you'll be left here on earth to go through persecution and FEMA camps to perfect your faith. He's going to test your faith because you were left behind. And so you can read about that all further in my article. And I just wanted to give you a rundown, folks. If you've never accepted Yahushua as your Savior, Yahushua ben David is his real name, and it's not Jesus Christ. That was a British English invention. He was never known as Jesus Christ until 300 years ago. Adopt his real name, folks. Yahushua ben David. You can go to sherryshiner.com/salvation.htm if you've never accepted Christ. I have a salvation prayer there. You can go there. And you know what? I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of some of the errors of the churches today. I hope this gives you something to think about, something to wake up about, and realize where we're at throughout the errors, so that you can start looking for the signs that we're supposed to be watching for his coming and the actual beginning of the tribulation period. I'll come out with more videos about that later. Until next time, everybody, ya bless.